Welcome back, everyone. Happy Hump Day. This is Brown Bag Bets, powered by BETSPERTS, where your daily dose of quick hit handicapping and sports betting picks. I'm Alex Christenson. After a little break for the U.S. Open, sorry, folks, couldn't find a quiet space to do the show, so Andy and Matt held it down, and we're back here. How'd it go, Andy? I mean, I listened to a little bit of it, but how was Matt? Did you do a good job? What do you think?
He was shit at tennis. Like, he didn't know anything about that. But I mean, honestly,
okay.
I was reading your stuff anyway. So, no, it went fine. I think we had a fun week, and yeah, it is. As you can see, if you're watching, we have a guest hanging out below us because we lean on some people here in some of the sports we're not so hot at, and college football is definitely. If anybody's heard me tell the story, like, I take Saturdays off to hang out with my family because I just absolutely neglect them on Sundays. So I don't get into this college football. Mostly the weekday games is what I get to watch. But yes, Rich Lammons at Rico_D_Gallo. That's like it's a joke about like the salsa, I guess. It's a pretty good Twitter name, better than mine.
Like
and yeah, he's a little deeper into the college football. Somebody I've read his writing for quite a while. And yeah, how you doing, Rich?
Doing pretty well. How are you guys doing today?
It's a beautiful day at the neighborhood. Football's in the air, and Andy and I do like the
pretty good because I can't actually hear him, but Andy's nodding. So
yeah, no, I think it's a pretty good day. We got college football tonight. We have a kind of a college football game tonight, and that was kind of the first question. Was last year kind of sucked? They're canceling games constantly. The only games that you could count on was like Central Missouri would play a game every week, and then you had the fun stuff with Coastal Liberty BYU, so kind of some underdog stories, and then in the long run, it just ended up being the big dogs in the playoff. Anyway, what are your hopes for normalcy in Corona year 2?
Well, honestly, it's just excitement. We got full schedules across the board. Full stadiums are going back to capacity. We have non-conference games. This year, it's kind of big on returning production since the NCAA, despite the fact that they can't really control anything with specific schools or conferences, because conferences just do whatever they want, hence the SEC and all that fun stuff. But returning productions typically average, I think, 63%. I heard from Bill Connolly. Now it's up to 77% for this year just because of the free year of eligibility. But COVID's still going to be kind of an issue. It's sounding like the NFL last year, where they're just going to say, we're getting this done. And the rules are kind of what I've seen is if a team has an issue with COVID that's going to cause them to miss a bunch of players, they're going to have to forfeit the game. And if there's a game where both teams have issues, they will both forfeit. So I need to actually check on the season win stuff, but I imagine that would still actually count as playing the game since you're getting a result, even if the game's not being played. But either way, schools, I think, have kind of realized the financial impact beyond just their own athletic budget. Say what you want about teams playing cupcakes, but those, when Alabama pays a bunch of money to Louisiana Monroe kind of relies on those paychecks to fund essentially the football program, the basketball programs, track and field, all that stuff. And it goes beyond that to the local community too, where a lot of places that are small towns, they rely on the people, the income during football season. So it's going to be nice to actually have what feels like a normal season, even though there'll still be kind of few stipulations with it.
That's an Alex specialty. We mentioned that with golf, but especially with tennis, check your rules.
Yeah.
Like when you get to win totals, I mean, check your rules. Especially, I had a college football teaser that was, and I'm embarrassed that I say I had a college football teaser, but it was like an 8-leg fun. It was something I just rounded down, but there was a game that got like lightninged out, or they did running time in the fourth quarter or whatever, and it was a loser, but they had to cancel it in the book, and I went and found the rules because they didn't play the full 55 or whatever it was. So, now this is completely different, but really double check your rules if you are playing win totals in college football because of, see what your specific books are going to do for cancels and whatnot.
Yeah, most of the time it says must play all regular season scheduled games for action, essentially. So like last year, oh goodness, I think I went 2-0 on my win totals that actually made it to the finish line, but I had probably like 7 canceled because it was just kind of like, well, this is a really good number, but I mean, who knows what's going to happen? So might as well play it. And sure enough, it was canceled enough. But here we are, 2020, 2021 season. So
Yeah, and you
All right,
have a couple win totals, don't you?
Yeah, I do. I ended up playing about 12, and there's still a couple that I don't mind. First one's Coastal Carolina taking the over 10. My projection's about 11 for this team. If you don't remember, they went 11-1 last year, had a great season. The lone loss was against Liberty and a great bowl game in overtime. They returned, I think, 19 starters, including quarterback Grayson McCall, who's a good dual threat, good arm. They only lose running back and one receiver, but they've got depth at running back, and they still return like their top 3 receivers and their entire O-line. So, they had a great year last year, 14th in the country in yards per play, 21st in like yards per play margin. They were explosive when they needed to. And their defense is only losing one starter. Granted, it was the Sun Belt Player of the Year on the D-line, led the team in sacks, but last year they had a pretty soft schedule, and that kind of helped boost their stats. But this year, their schedule is probably even easier. If you do strength of schedule based on win totals, they're ranked 130 out of 130 teams. If you do strength of schedule according to like averaging power rankings, they still rank 130th.
That's pretty good.
Their hardest game is a pick'em at App State, but even that's before a bye week or right after a bye week. And the previous week, App State's playing on the road at Louisiana Lafayette. So that even kind of negates their toughest game. With my numbers and projections outside the App State game, every game they're going to be just about a 2-touchdown favorite as of now. So, we'll see when lines actually come, but my projections come out to just over 11 wins. So it's still a pretty good edge. Going over 10 is kind of scary because, if with McCall being a dual threat quarterback, he's going to run a bunch. So it opens up the case for injuries, and that's never ideal. But given their soft schedule, they've got UMass, Kansas, Louisiana Monroe, South Alabama. There's some pretty easy ones on there. And in fact, in the Sun Belt, you play basically all but one team, and one team they avoid is Louisiana Lafayette. So, and I've got them as probably the highest rated team in the Sun Belt, second to Coastal Carolina, and App State's not far behind.
Sure. No, I dig that. And just my question too is, so do they have 12 regular season games?
They do. Yeah, okay. Everybody's scheduled 12. Okay. Everybody is playing 12 except for Hawaii, who's playing 13 for whatever reason.
But they have easy travel,
Oh yeah, but yeah, even regression indicators that kind of worry me. They rank 4th in converting third down percentages, but super easy schedule again. So that might drop off, but not significantly. Even if the offense regresses some, like against Cupcake schedule, it's still going to be pretty good. And even they led the country in turnover margin at plus 13. But if you dig into that, there wasn't exceptional fumble luck. Offense, they lost 7 of 15. Defense recovered 9 of 22 fumbles. They did pick off 16 passes. So that's the main reason for their big number. Their entire secondary is back again and again, soft schedule. So, that should regress some just year over year, but that'd still probably be a pretty good strong suit for this team.
You mentioned they're going to be, 2 touchdown plus favorites as you start to look at some of your numbers. Do you think you'll have any interest in backing them? It sounds like you don't really have too much respect for a lot of the guys in their schedule. Are they going to be able to cover some of the huge numbers we see in college football this year?
Yeah, I'm sorry, Alex. I see your lips moving, but I don't hear any of the words coming of you.
Oh, that's weird. I've never had that word. Somebody can't hear out. I can hear Alex.
Yeah.
Oh, he was asking him. He was asking if you were looking to, back them at all as far as covering some of those big numbers. My head actually went the other way because I'm so risk averse on these win totals. I'm like, what about real late? Like, if they need one more win and it's like they're a 10-point favorite, are you trying to shoot for some sort of middle there where they don't cover, but they still get their 10th or 11th win or something? I don't know. Do you let futures like this affect betting on teams like this throughout the season?
I have, and I've regretted it pretty much every time just because I think I don't make a good bet whenever I try to hedge out of it. Like last year, I had the Giants under for the win total. I ended up pushing, but I bet Dallas, I think, in that game in week 17, I think, and Giants covered it and all that. And I was like, well, that was just stupid. But essentially, I try to just separate these as an individual. This is an individual bet. If I look to go on or against them during the season, that's a different individual bet with no impact to the season win total.
Sure. And it looks like you took an under here as well with Auburn. What's the case for that before we get to some games?
Yeah, so this one's less value as far as my edge between the market and my projection. I think I projected about 6.8, and taking the vig out, it's about 6.9 right now. But I went to Auburn, so I know this team pretty well, and we're rated high, I think, just from how we've done recruiting over the years. But we've got a new coach, whole new staff, whole new schemes. It's not looking great. Our schedule sucks. Brian Harrison's coming from Boise State. He coached 1 year at Arkansas State, but other than that, he has no real ties to the area. So he's got Mike Bobo, who was the OC at South Carolina last year, and Derek Mason, who got fired from Vanderbilt as the DC. So at least they've got ties to the area. But overall, we lost our top 3 receivers last year. So our player with the most returning receptions is our running back with 11. So you've got Bo Nix that actually regressed from his freshman to sophomore year from both yards per attempt and offensive passing success rate. And now he's got to learn a new system without 3 good receivers. I mean, we have talent at receivers, but literally no in-game experience. The 2 deep roster came out earlier this week, and only 1 actually has any registered catches. So that's going to be new. There's probably going to be more tight ends usage, a lot more 12 personnel, and more running game. I mean, our running game is good with Tank Bigsby. He averaged 6 yards a carry last year, which is 4th best in the conference. But again, our O-line is good at run blocking, but not so much in the passing game. And in fact, there was a quote earlier this week. Somebody asked the coach, has Auburn found consistency along the offensive line? And his answer was, yeah, I don't know. That's not very, as a fan, that's not very comforting to hear going into Akron. It's like, you can't even lie about that. But reading between the lines, it's like we're still great at run blocking, but not so much in pass protection. So you go to our schedule, we've got to play Alabama, Georgia, Texas A&M on the road, LSU on the road. And LSU is going to be better than last year. They're not going to be the 2019 version, but they're still going to be better than last year. And Auburn hasn't won there since, I think, 1999. And that's with much better teams than what we've got this year. We play at Penn State. We've got away games at Arkansas. That's going to be a kind of coin flip, but that's after playing at LSU and Georgia at home. So that's a tough spot there. Then we get a bye week, and then we play Ole Miss at home. But Ole Miss's offense is fantastic, and their defense, while is still below average, it's going to be better, but it's poor. But I don't see how we're going to be able to make comebacks against team if we got to come down, because with Harrison, tempo is going to slow down. Auburn's typically ranked in the top 3rd under Gus Malzahn in tempo, although it's kind of slower than what people realize. It's, he's known for his hurry-up offense, but in reality, it's hurry up, get to the line of scrimmage, and then look to the sideline for a play, and that takes up the whole play clock. So Harrison at Boise State the last few years, they ranked like 90s, 80s in tempo in the country. And for Mike Bobo's 1 year at South Carolina, they ranked 80th. So it's definitely going to slow down, a lot more run stuff. So if we get behind, which seems likely at times, it's going to hurt. And our defense, our secondary is pretty great with Roger McCready's a good shutdown corner. And we got safety with one of the best names in college football and Smoke Monday. But our problem is our D-line has lost, Derek Brown to the NFL. We've lost 3 other starters to the NFL essentially over the years, and it's dipped down a bunch. Last year, we dropped from 19th, I think, to about 60th in yards per rush allowed. Line yards went ranking from 27th to 88th in the country. Havoc rate went from top 20 to 107th-ish. So it's just a drop off. And with Derek Mason in, Kevin Steele was the previous defensive coordinator. Now he's over at Tennessee. He's did a great job making in-game adjustments, and I just don't know if Derek Mason can do the same thing. He's a defensive guy. Maybe he's a better coordinator than coach, but Vanderbilt kept on regressing the last few years since he's been there. So,
Sure.
You can't really compare Vanderbilt with the talent that they get in and the recruits to what, he'll have at Auburn, but it's still, not excited about this, and really,
Yeah, you've got an Auburn shirt on even, so I
yeah.
mean it's fun, and you can hear you probably don't even hear yourself saying "r" or "we" so much. Like I used to do that so much with the Vikings, but yeah, I'll probably get involved with both these, and yeah, some picks for this weekend too if people want to get some plays. There are a shitload of Thursday games. There's some Friday games, but both of these are Saturday if I'm not mistaken. You had a couple
Yep.
plays for this weekend, and you were looking to attack them a couple different ways. So yeah, give me a quick pitch on these.
Yeah, Cincinnati, Miami, Ohio, the Victory Bell rivalry. This is more of a power numbers play. My number is closer to 27.5. For as much as movement as there is, this opened up about 19, went up to about 23.5 within like a week when they opened up back in like early July, and then went back down. I think once limits increase, this will go back up. But Cincinnati's got a really strong team. They're honestly setting their eyes on trying to make a run for the playoff, which will mean they need to go undefeated and get style points. The quarterback's back. He's a good dual threat runner with a good arm. And the defense is stellar. They've really been great at getting to the quarterback the last few years. Havoc rate last year, they ranked 14th. Previous years, top 50. The offensive success rate with what they have coming back is top 30. Miami, Ohio, I was kind of shocked about some of their ranks and stats last year. I mean, they were actually number one havoc rate defense, but they played 3 games, and one of those was against Akron. So it's kind of hard to really take anything from last season into consideration. So going back to like 2019, their full season, their numbers look more like an average MAC team. For the MAC, they'll compete. They'll be one of the better teams in their division, but overall, I think the talent gap is pretty big. And just at this number, I'm going to take a stab on the full game in that first half. And I take the first half more just because I think they'll get out to a quick start and kind of reduces the risk of any kind of backdoor cover when you get to some of these bigger numbers in college football.
Sure. Yeah, it looks like the same thing on there in Kentucky. It's a 31-point favorite, but also tickling the first half, or maybe not tickling, maybe staking it equally there.
Yeah, I stake them equally, but about half on each because, like what you see with the line movement on this stuff, we're in week 1. I mean, in general, college football lines move a lot from opener to close, but these opened up back in July. So if you weren't getting on them, then it's you're definitely losing some of the value, but there'll still be some movement come game day. But yeah, Kentucky, Louisiana, Monroe. This is more just a fade of Louisiana, Monroe because they are bottom 4 in my power rankings. I mean, we just saw UConn put up a nice, terrible performance, and I've got them rated lower than UConn. They've got new coaches coming in with Terry Bowden, he spent some time at Clemson, but was more known for his time at Akron and even actually coached Auburn in the 90s. We got Rich Rodriguez coming in for OC, so I think there's some good hires for the program, but that's not going to change overnight to a team that was pretty much bottom 10 in almost every stat. I mean, they allowed, I think it was 85% of red zone trips to score. They were bottom 10 in yards per attempt, yard per rush, defensive pass efficiency, defensive explosive rate, offensive success rate, offensive explosive rate. So, I mean, just a bad team. Kentucky's got a new offensive coordinator, Liam Cohen. He was on the Rams staff for a few years, and so that he's going to focus on bringing the passing game up to speed. They will be more balanced this year. They ran about 35% of their plays last year were only passes, so a lot more run last year. So, and the tempo is going to increase. And for what it's worth, this guy was on the UMass staff back in 2014 and 2015 as the passing game coordinator and quarterbacks coach, and they were top 15 in tempo when he was there. So, they were going to, I think they're about ranked 120th in tempo last year, so that's going to increase. And with a new quarterback, transfer kid from Penn State, new OC, I'd expect them to really keep all the starters in for the full game just to get more reps, more timing on this as they implement this offense. And they're going to face Louisiana Monroe. That is a great pick-me-up game to start the season off to get some reps in.
Yeah, I was going to say, you mentioned that UConn game. It is always nice to get off to a nice, easy start like that. And there was a prop. I can't remember the exact teams, but when I did the Friday show at the WynnBet Trader, they have a prop over there, and it was like Mass, Louisiana Monroe, UConn, Like it was like the three worst teams versus the next three worst best teams. It was like a 3-game win total or a
Yeah.
3-team win total summation one, and definitely UConn and Louisiana Monroe were in that. So
Yeah, I
but yeah,
saw a chat on that, and I kind of got a little bit of grief, I think, because in my season win total stuff, I don't really rate FCS opponents. So for most schools, I just assume like one win essentially against those, and UConn's playing two FCS opponents, and it's like so my numbers give them 2 wins for those, but in reality, it's probably only like 1.2 wins or something like that. So I was a bit
sure,
higher
yeah.
than it should
It's
have
like
been.
Ken Palm when
Yeah,
you play a Division II school, it just grades it as 100% win for the projection. So all
right.
right. Well, yeah, a couple picks, a couple season win totals. Thank you. I'll say thanks for Alex. I don't understand why you can't hear him. I've never had that, but
Uh,
he'll wave by there. And yeah, appreciate you coming on, giving us the picks. I'll definitely play those win totals, and I'll see what I already have in the accounts for college football. Because I say I don't watch it or handicap it, doesn't mean I don't tail a bunch of other smarter people on it. And I include Rich in that conversation. So appreciate you joining us today. And yeah, good luck this weekend.
yeah, thank you guys. Take care.
It is bizarre, but that's how this goes, folks. It's always an
I can
adventure.
hear you. It is always an adventure, and the U.S. Open kind of rolls on.
Speaking of
It is.
adventures,
Speaking of, yeah, they are getting some rain, as it's been the case in the I mean, just run through these like they're all going to get played. Let's not be
yeah.
negative. Some of these will get
Well,
pushed till tomorrow
I
because
have a
they
little
only have so
optimism.
many roofs.
I have a little optimism because they have 2 roofs. That's pretty good. They're playing tennis right now, and it looks like we have a window till about 1:30. So I think they can get the first section of women's matches in. Hopefully, a couple of the men's matches, if they're quick, they can get in. And there might be another little bit window later, but Hurricane Ida has made its way up this far. New York's probably just going to get crushed later tonight. So I think they will get some tennis in. I'm a little more optimistic, but I expect most, if not all, of these to get pushed back to tomorrow. Stevens golf over 20 games. I'll keep it short and sweet. We know what we're doing here. This is going to be a really competitive match. I expect this to easily go over this in 2 sets. Looked at the 3-set prices, but as I mentioned, I don't know what's happened over the last month or so. Those have kind of ticked down, and I just don't see as much value in those numbers. Wouldn't hold it against you if you decided to play it, but maybe look at Stevens 2-1 or something like that. I think she's live in this match, but over 20.5 games looks great to me. That should be 21.5 at a pretty juicy number. Daria Kasatkina plus 100. This one's actually moved against me a little bit. I'm seeing plus 110s, plus 115s. I have her as a short favorite in this match against Marketa Vondrasova. Look at the matchup here. Kasatkina has been much better on hard courts this year. Vondrasova, I think, getting a little too much credit for a pretty easy kind of win in her first round. Plus, won the silver medal and has been pretty solid since then. But like Kasatkina here at plus money. And then a big dog play here. Kaha Yuvan, a younger player who struggled a little bit towards the beginning of the year, has started to play better this last month. I look at this match against Danielle Collins. Collins did play a very good first-round match. She beat up on Carla Suarez Navarro, who is in her final year and retiring. I know that Collins is playing with an adductor injury, so didn't play this. I actually really like this number. I have Yuvan like plus 4 and probably would have played this a little bigger, but knowing that we have a break, maybe that gives Collins some time to retire. Either way, I still have this number at 4.5, so we're getting a pretty good edge here at 5.5 games. And then at plus 450, I've got her closer to plus 350. Even without Collins being injured, she's a pretty solid player. She has the serve in the game that's going to work for these courts. I think the rain might actually help her in slowing things down a bit for her. So we'll see how that goes. Siniakova Sakari over 20.5 games. I have this at almost 21.5, basically. I think this is going to be a really competitive match again. Also has a good chance that it goes 3 sets. But you look at the 2 of these women on the hard courts the last couple of weeks, and in general, a lot of tiebreakers, a lot of 7-5 sprinkled in there. So I like the 20.5. And then Bianca Andreescu against Lauren Davis. Before there were Coco Gauff overs, there were Bianca Andreescu overs, and we're just going to keep doing that. 19.5 games. I have this at 20.5, almost 21. There's some 20s floating around. That's just as fine as well. So happy to continue to play those, and may even look at some other Andreescu bets. She's starting to play some better tennis, Andy. I don't know.
Yeah, it'd be nice to see her get back to form, as she is one of them. I love her when she's playing great. She can be the best player in the. Yeah, she could surpass Zimbardi, I think, if she gets back to form. Speaking of getting back to form, golfers are out there, I guess. Again, I mentioned this to producer Dan off the air. nobody outside of maybe NASCAR, it was a good pull by him, closes the season on less of a culmination than golf. No one cares about the Tour Championship, the timing with football starting, the fact that it's less golfers. It's a lot of money. That's the only draw, I guess, outside of that. But yeah, the Super Bowl, the Final Four, the Stanley Cup Finals, all of those things are a lot cooler than the Tour Championship. I have a couple bets. I mean, there's just a couple of top tens. There's not a ton of markets. That's why we didn't do Approaching the Green. I did play some Spieth and Xander Schauffele top 10 prices, both around even money. And really, I do like the Xander price. I did play him to be that lowest scoring. He's probably my favorite golfer here. It just, head starts aside. This does include head starts. So he has to finish in the top 10 on the scoreboard for both these. And then Spieth also, I really like this track for him. I've played him a couple ways. Kind of a tickler bet that's not on the screen. I played Rahm wins. Spieth gets second, like in an exacta for, I don't know, 40, 50 to 1, something like that. Rahm and all those pretty low
That's
price,
fun.
but I did play a little fun one for a few bucks. And honestly, that will probably be it. I'm going to look at matchups. If I have anything out, I'll release them today, but it might just be those two I gave out yesterday and these really for Tour Championship. And that close it with a Wednesday, a WynnBet Wednesday, huh?
Might as well.
I don't have any football. I'm out. I'm going to do a recap of them next week. We're on to basketball. It's all you. You're a WynnBet Wednesday guy now. Win total.
Trailblazers. The Trailblazers of Portland, I think, are going to have a really tough season this year, even if they do decide to keep Damian Lillard. We've heard a lot of whispers and thoughts and rumors and reports of requests and offers and things like that. And a lot of that is NBA nonsense and subterfuge and teams doing stuff. Anything that Daryl Morey is tied to is something that you have to kind of take with a grain of salt, especially if it sounds too good to be true. But even with Damian Lillard, I look at a team that's made several moves that's going to make their roster thinner. They've moved about 3 or 4 guys that were solid position minutes out, brought in some players to try to replace them. But, just from a numbers perspective, I look at a team that was almost 10 deep last year. It goes down to about 8 deep this year. Everyone gets a year older. I think they're going to be in kind of the 7 to 12 range in the West. That could be very competitive. And I think that there's some teams that are kind of moving up as this team moves down. I think there's a good chance they get passed by. At under 44.5 wins, I have them at 40 wins. So under 500, they'd have to win 42 games to get to that 500 record. So we've even got a 2.5 game edge to 500. Again, as I look through and make some tweaks, looking at some of the market numbers, some of the wins, their schedule. One of the hardest things about being the Portland Trailblazers, it's a little bit of a double-edged sword because everyone has to travel to Portland. It's a long flight to get there. If anyone's ever tried to fly to Portland, it's kind of a pain in the butt. You have to go a bunch of time zones over, especially if you're an East Coast team. But Portland has to do that every time they travel. If you look at the amount of distance traveled by teams, Portland has to travel, I think, close to like 70,000 miles, which is about 3,000 miles more than Golden State that's in second, and about 7,500 miles or so less than the next team, which is the Lakers. Every time they leave Portland, they have to experience a big travel spot. I think, again, you look at this team, looking that it's a short team, thinking again about we've got a full season. There's a bigger break than there was before the shortened season last year, but it's still a shorter break than these guys are used to, off a tough season, coming into a full season. Again, you guys mentioned and talked about the COVID stuff during Rich's segment there. All that stuff's going to carry into the NBA, and I don't think that you want, again, a team with a short bench with some guys that are getting older and kind of moving on the wrong side of their careers. And if Dave Lillard goes out, this is going to be great. So not only am I taking the under 44.5, I'm also going to play them to miss the playoffs at plus 200. I think there's a good shot they get into the play-in scenario. We've got that scenario again, Andy, where the top 10 teams, 7 through 10, will fight it out for the last couple spots. I think there's a chance they might get in there, but at plus 200, I think at the very least we'll have enough equity to get out of that position if we choose to, but I'm not even worried about that. So under 44.5 wins, and the Blazers to miss the playoffs. Cross our fingers for a Dame Lillard trade, but I don't even think we need it.
Yeah, that's just like a 500 team. I can see it landing there. So if you want to make any bets on the NBA, the NHL, the NFL, MLB, PGA, WNBA, MLS, or any of that other stuff, you can get a WynnBet account. That is our sponsor. $500 risk-free bet coming your way. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you tomorrow. Probably guest the rest of the week. And yeah, good luck. Give us a thumbs up. See ya.